right now we're going to have a live session with Tom Seaman on my screen, and Tom will take over. But during this demo, you'll see the platform in action, including key features, workflows, and practical applications that support efficient facility management. The goal of the session is to give you a hands-on look at AssetWorks EAM and how it can streamline processes, improve visibility, and drive better decision-making across your organization. Let's dive into the demo, Tom.
Great, thanks, Brad. Apologies in advance, everybody. My throat's a little rough. I'm getting through a cold here, so I may be taking some pauses to get a sip of water. My screen that you're seeing right now is the web portals, and we're going to talk about work management, service requests, inventory like parts and material management. We're going to go through asset performance, and we're going to cover capital planning and some of the reporting and analytics. There's a lot going on up top. I'm an admin, so I have a lot of these portal tabs, but again, it's all role-based security. So whatever you're authorized to view, you would see. So, if you are a current user of the system, you may not see the exact same view that I have. We will then also cover what the mobile app looks like. So if you're going to use the mobile app, you're going out and about to these assets. What does that look like, and what are the capabilities there? So I want to start first in work management. You can label these portals whatever you like, but it allows you to change your layout. We have customers that say, hey, I know where my buildings are. I don't need to see an overlay of the map. Others want to see that, but this layout allows you to go in and basically change your map around. And any of these other windows, or what we call gadgets, can be moved, added, deleted as you see fit. Now, I want to start, before we get to the maps, I'm going to work kind of top to bottom. And the first thing is the asset search. So one of the great things is with the system, you can create parent-child relationships. You can create tags throughout descriptions and other fields. And that allows you to do a search like I'm doing right now. I typed in City Hall, and this is actually going to bring in all of my City Hall assets. And I can filter using these checkboxes to drill down into any of these assets. So if I wanted to look at, say, the parking lot lighting, if I select that, it not only filters the list, but now I'm also in the map here where I can zoom in or out. I can select from the map. This can provide condition info, any reported problems. I can look at the history, create a new work order, report a new problem. And all that's done very simply through my search function here. That also includes any of your facility data points that you want to search on. So your attributes, and I believe Jason had gone through some of that as well. The attributes of any of your assets can also be used to search for anything in the system. So that means, you add an attribute and it now becomes a saved filter option. And it also becomes a potential filter for the map, or what we call a map layer. So our maps allow us to overlay assets, service requests, work orders, and projects. And by clicking on these 4 arrows, that takes me to a best fit view of whatever I'm looking at. So parcels in this instance, I can click on one and it'll pull it up with all relevant information. The headers that you see will contain only the relevant information based on that asset type. It's something we call asset profiles, and it's really what allows, aside from the role-based security, it's what allows our system to track unlimited assets of any type, where we can bring in an entire city, county, state, and they can manage all their assets and still be siloed and only see what they're supposed to see and only see relevant information when necessary. If I were to, turn on the facility layer, I can, zoom out to the facility layer, and I can select the facility from here. And now I can see relevant information about the building. Clicking this little tree icon. This is what I mentioned earlier, is that parent-child relationship. You can do this in as many levels as you want, as complex as you want. But in this example, okay, I've got a campus area, I've got buildings. At any level, you can actually create your own groupings. So I created an exterior grouping. And this helps me organize and say, okay, here's my parking lot. And then within there, there's the lighting or interior. What's on the first floor? What's in room 101? So right down to, I know Jason was joking about the furniture and the chairs. You know, you don't have to track them all as individual, assets. But if you do, you can roll them up, or you can simply track them as attributes of the overall facility. This also includes your ability to look at inspections, the entire maintenance schedule, warranty information. So the system will generate warranty claims automatically as long as the terms are in there. If you're a current user and you're not taking advantage of that, you own it already. And if you're new to the system, it's something that really provides a very quick ROI on our system. Unlimited file attachments, parts used list, a messages section, and all of that, including work history and my ability to create a new work order, new service request, again, is all done just from this simple pop-in, right? So that's our assets. Now, if I want to look at service requests, right? I can turn on any of my service request layers or all of them and, zoom to any one of these. If I click on it on the map, I can see that we have urgent, facility related, and HVAC at the location where I clicked on. And I'm going to click in here and I can see there is a hot cold issue. And I can assign this to a work order, and that would then allow me to push that work out to a technician. Now, if I assign it to a work order and assign someone, when we get to the mobile app here shortly, the end user will get a push notification notifying them that they've been assigned work. So that is one function through assigning work that automatically notifies the end user. Now, let's talk before we continue on the map layers. What are some ways we can get service requests into the system? Well, one way we can do it is through our service request portal. So this portal is 3 steps, and you control the instructions, the options, and the labels of things, all very easily changed. And this portal allows you to create unique web links, unlimited instances of it, in fact, with all of its own unique configuration for each link. So if you've got different audiences that are going to report different things and need different instructions, it allows you to configure it as so. So who are you? Where's the problem? What is the problem? And I can submit that, which would then in turn add that service request to the map. Now, something else to point out, below my map, and I can change this layout if I wanted to, I also have a list view and a summary view. So now if I only wanted to see HVAC issues, I see I've got 2, I can click on that and it takes me in and I can see they're both hot cold issues, what building is it, and I can go in and look at more detail, update information, or I can click the icon here to create a new work order in a single click. So that's one way to do it. Another function that we have, and this is a new module, it's called our facility service requests, and this really lends itself well to a lot of what Jason was saying earlier too. Is like, I'm in conference room 101 and I'm it's too cold, it's too hot in here, there's a problem with something. I'm not going to try to look up all those details. I want to just say where I am and then let somebody else sort through it, or let the system route it accordingly. So this portal allows me to create a new service request, also 3 steps. So who are you? And then for where the issue is, you get to choose a hierarchy. All right. So I can go in and I can say, all right, well, I'm at the government center. I'm in City Hall. I'm on the first floor. You don't have to have all these options like area, but I can go to room and I can say, yeah, I'm actually in conference room 100. And then from here, I can then choose, all right, is it grounds related, facility related? And then this is the list that you would create to provide end users to select what type of issue they're having. When you select that issue, you can add your comments, upload a file like an image or anything associated to it. And this would then route automatically to the group that's responsible for electrical in that building or on that floor, in that room. The system knows based on your configuration where to route this to automatically. So a lot of different ways to submit those service requests. And there's no right answer, there's no wrong answer. It's just a matter of, different groups needing different ways of submitting things so that ultimately you get away from paper and email and phone calls and you can centralize everything here into the system. Also, if you guys have questions as we go through, please feel free to throw them up on the chat. I know I didn't mention that in the beginning, but if you haven't done so, feel free to chat away. And if I don't get to them right away, I can always double back to them here at the end. So that's our service requests. We also have the ability to do work orders on the map and view them. So I can see, all right, show me all my PMs and inspections. So now I can come in here and I can see, I've got a condition assessment at the library, and I could go to assignments and I could assign that work to a work order, which would in turn push a notification to their mobile app, letting them know I've given them work to do. So whether it's a service request to a work order or just the work order itself, I can manage that from a map. The asset layers also can be turned on through here. So for any of you currently using the fleet portion of our system, if you have GPS and telematics, or you have it but it's not integrated with us, you can integrate that, and that too can become a map layer. So now I could say, hey, I need somebody to do this assessment. Let me see the vehicles. I turn that staff vehicle layer on. I can see it's Mike. I'm going to go ahead and assign that to Mike. He's the closest one to the building. Or if it was a service request, right? Turning on your service request layers and seeing, who's closest to the service request, and being able to basically dispatch these people to work that needs to be done based on where their current location is. Your base map can be changed. So depending on what maps you want to use, you can have a variety of them. And we also support address searches in there too, if you just want to zoom to a certain area quickly. So I don't see any questions. I'm going to take a sip of water here. Your work orders can also have a filtered and listed view. So in here, just like my service request filters that I've created ones for my work orders. You've got planning work orders, which are for estimates. Pending is where all of your inspections, any preventative maintenance services that you're doing, it's where they all get mass generated to before somebody opens that work up and begins working on it. In which case, then it would be an open work order. And when a technician is done with the work order, they click finished. If they missed anything, it'll tell them. And then once they've completed everything, they will then click finish. It'll go to finished. And from there, it can be reviewed and ultimately closed out. So what does that look like? Well, okay, show me all my PMs and inspections that are still pending. These are filters that I've created, right? Whatever you want to create them for. But if I click on this, I now see a list of all the assets, all the services, and what I need to do. I can sort columns. So a nice one is assignments. The yellow assignments button means it's not assigned. The silver gray means it is. So if I go into an assignment button, I can assign a vendor, so I know who's responsible for doing the work, a crew, or individual staff. I can see who's clocked in, who's not. Do they have any skills or certs? I've got what they're currently assigned and what their availability is right now. And all that just from a visual cue of yellow means not assigned. A lot of these areas too, you can move the columns around. I can turn columns on and off too, and that saves to your ID. So even if you're a current user and you're not aware of that, just know you can make those changes, and they will save through any upgrade to your specific ID. Work orders can also be grouped. So multi-asset work orders allow you to create a work order and say, you know what, I don't want to have a big run-on list for the technician. Also, I don't want to view it that way. I want to see percent to completion and how many things are finished and how many were, how many total. And here I can then view, where these, HVAC services are going to take place, or, where we're going to go do these generator inspections. All of that just groups them together to make it easier to monitor completion and also for the end users to be able to complete it easy. Going back out to the main work management portal, there's also the ability to assign things using a calendar. So this now enables me to assign something to someone, but also say when we need it to be done. Not just, hey, here it is with the default priority and a completion date. We're going to say when we would like you to do it. So I can see when someone's available, when they're not. I can pop out this panel and I can then add work orders, service requests, and multi-asset work orders to my schedule. Also lets you schedule different activities like indirect time codes and other things to, like, maybe somebody goes on a training and you've got to block them out. That's also something that can be added. The last thing I'll say in here is there's a lot more that we could cover, and we have limited time, and also I want to stick to the important basics for today's session. But there's a lot you can do in just work management. I mean, if you sublet any work, you have contractors do any work for you, you forget to create a work order, or you didn't even know it was done, but now you've got an invoice. The direct charges button lets you add an invoice with all the details and attach it and charge an asset, a department, or an account code. So there's a lot of efficient ways to capture the work that's being done at a variety of different levels. But for the internal work, we're going to jump down and we're going to talk about the mobile app, okay? Our mobile app works disconnected. It is a store and forward app, which basically just means if you lose service, everything you do while disconnected will save and automatically, with no user interaction required, push to the main database. And this, like the web, is role-based security. So I will only see the things I'm supposed to see, whether it's data like assets themselves, the work orders, buttons, fields, functions. All of the UI can be controlled here in the mobile app. And these functions also may or may not show based on what you do. So I'm just going to go over a few of these, and we're going to start in asset management. So depending on how you do your work, remember I said some folks don't need or want the map per se, but if you want the map, I can come in and I can turn on different map layers. I can select different base maps, and then I can click on any of the layers and it'll zoom to that layer that I have on. I can turn a layer off. I can do a best fit picture by hitting the square. The bullseye will zoom to where you are, and then you'll be a pin on the map and see what's around you, okay? And I can select an asset and go right into the details from the map. I can also do this from the list view. The list view, again, filter, search, but it also lets you utilize the device's camera to barcode or QR code scan any asset. So things with existing barcodes, QR codes. If you don't, there's a lot of vendors out there that have label printing capabilities for asset tags, weatherized tags, whatever you might need. But if I go into a record here, I can see all my attributes, all my information that I track on this. I can see all the file attachments. I can attach other files if I need to. If there's a meter, I can see meter related info, all the basic information. It also lets me access all the history and drill down into it. I can create a service request. So I'm reporting a problem on this issue or on this asset. I need to create a work order. I can go in work order. So whether it's through a map or through a list view, very quickly you have all that information, all the associated documentation, the history, and I can report a problem or I can create a work order. So it's a very simple, straightforward function. It also includes a separate service request area. So this allows me, again, through a map or through a list view, to access my service requests. And by selecting one, I can edit it and update file attachments, take photos, notes. I can also, in a single click, turn this into a work order, clicking that work order icon right there. So also something to note, I can also create a new service request from scratch. I can set my current position. I can go to the map and drop a pin, or I can scan or search for an asset from that list. But again, this allows you to accommodate the reporting of issues, even if they don't have an asset or don't know the asset, or maybe they're not even responsible for it, right? Maybe I'm facility staff and I'm driving to a building and I notice there's a down stop sign. And I also know that our city uses it for other assets. I can report the down stop sign. If you're using our system for fleet, I've got a problem with my vehicle. I can literally look up my vehicle from this list and I could add my vehicle in here and that would automatically route it to the fleet shop. So there's a lot of ways to create efficiencies by managing all these things under one database, and still allowing, where needed, some crossover for efficiency's sake. We're going to jump in next to work orders. And if you haven't guessed, work orders, like everything else, assets and service requests, have a map view that I can go into. And I can see there's a fire extinguisher inspection. I could go into that work order, or a list view. Scan an asset, again, search for it, filter by different criteria if you want. And in here, the person icon, that represents an individual asset work order. So if I go in and I look at this work order on the fuel system for this generator, I can first and foremost go to the asset record. Hey, let me look at the history on this. What was done on this before? I can go in and drill down into these work orders or reported problems. And in a single click, I can go right back into the work order. It also gives me access. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to go out of that. It also gives me access to all the attribute, the file attachments like owner's manuals, and again, right back to that work order. My task can be done real time with the play button. I could also post my labor after the fact and put my hours in. I can request parts, and that lets me look through a list of inventory that I'm allowed to request from. I can also post things. So maybe you use a P card and you buy what you need as you need it, or you have things on a shelf, but you don't have it in our database, or you don't have it in there yet. I can still scan the item and just say not from inventory and fill out the remaining information, take a picture of the receipt, and now I've issued a part to the work order, whether it was in inventory or not. So also to note, I can take photos and videos here, attach files to the work order. These files, they happen to be auto-populated. So one of the other things that we can standardize is, hey, when you do this type of work for this type of asset, include the floor plan and a safety guide, right? That's one thing that you can automatically associate. So that's a nice function. The square icons that I've been showing you here, these square icons are what we call a multi-asset work order. So that is, again, just from 5 minutes ago, those are the work orders where we want to organize for the technician, but also for management to be able to oversee and know what's getting completed. So as I go in, I can see I've got to inspect these 5 shelters. I can do this in a list view or a map view. I can choose the asset from the map, and then from here I can attach things. I can add notes. I can report a service request and say there's other problems, but also I have a checklist here. So this is just a very simple, short example, but these can have procedural information. Failing an item can generate a service request if you want it to, so that there's follow-up work to be done, either for you or for someone else or for an entirely different group, possibly, right? Work orders can also have something called test results on them. So I'm going to jump into just an example here. And the test results are under the test section in a work order. Now, if you're authorized, you can add them yourself. So there's a function down here that lets me add a test result. There's also a function that can be configured that would say, hey, I want test results based on certain types of work to automatically be added to a PM or a repair work order or both. And then you can make it optional or required on a work order. And why would you do this is the question. Well, first off, they're checklists. So I can have a checklist on a non-scheduled maintenance work order, like a repair work order, right? Anything that typically has an inspection on it tends to fall under that PM program. Well, this allows you to still do checklists for repairs as well. It can update any information on the asset. It can update condition on the asset, and it can also drive service requests if it failed or if the entry was defined as outside of acceptable range. It can allow for that to trigger a service request, or it could just be updating data. Hey, select from a choice list that we provide. And when I say we, I mean you as the organization. We want to drive good data as an organization. We're going to provide our technicians a choice list. Update the runtime hours, the meter, right? All those things, all from a test. Also condition, and you'll see where this goes shortly. But my condition, that scale is defined by you as well. And it adds to any work order, PM or repair, and allows you to capture and update all that asset information and drive additional data capture beyond the work order itself. Gonna grab a sip of water here quick. So going back out to the main screen, you may have noticed test results has its own standalone function. This too can provide map or list views, but this lets me perform these checklists without a work order. So I could go down to the clock and I could put my hours in or do a start stop real time for any task and then do my work. So I'm still capturing the time it takes me to do whatever I'm doing, even though I'm not in a work order. But if I click in building rounds, good example. So test results as a standalone, meaning no work order, they're very helpful for things that are done very frequently, like daily, okay? Or things that are impromptu, like we have to do storm preparation. Or, it's the beginning of my shift and I have to do a walk around. This is just a simple example, but I can have my procedural info and I can mark things as pass. I can mark things as a failure. And if I fail something, it can generate a service request. So what's great about this is, hey, we don't need to go through a work order. We just need to know that you did it, or if we get asked about something that, yes, it was checked by this person on this date, on this time, and these were the results. And then if there is a problem, have the system generate the service request for follow-up work order to be done. Something else to note too with test results. You can control the input type. So is it pass fail? Is it numeric entry, text entry? Is it a validated choice list that you provide? Do they have to put comments in? Do they have to attach a file like a photo or video? All that can be controlled. So these test results, with or without a work order, are really powerful tools to take whatever work you're doing now to the next level if you're missing data or feel like you can't capture everything you want to. So that's our mobile app. We're going to transition here in the last 25 minutes back to the web, and we're going to get into inventory management. So as part of the overall out-of-box system, you have fully integrated inventory management, which allows you to track unlimited items of parts and materials, unlimited inventory locations, and anytime a request comes from a work order, right? If there is a work order request, it will go to the appropriate location that manages that item, and you can then review those requests. You can see who asked for it, what asset, what work order, and everything can be drilled down into the work order, the asset. This is another area where I can move things around. So I can move the columns where I want them. I can right click and remove or add columns. And using the checkboxes here, I can set different functions and then mass apply them to the request. So set notify flag, that's a little gear. That lets somebody know that whatever they asked for is ready to be picked up. It's a nice digital way of communication. It eliminates, phone calls, emails, asking if it's ready. When they come in, so after I set the notify flag, I can also set issue. And I can then select and issue items in bulk. And if it's not available, I can order it and I can check what I need to order and I can process an order through this, which will then ask me, do you want to add it to a requisition or a purchase order? The IDs themselves, you can go in, edit things. But requisitions, you can set approval, you can track bids, quotes, and proposals on things before it goes to a PO. Your POs, they allow for blanket purchase orders. If a item came from a work order, I can see the work order details, who's working on it, what asset it's for, and that way, no matter what happens, this doesn't get lost in the mix. I know who asked for it, what work order it's for, what asset it's for, and if it was added as its own line item, or maybe through replenishment for a reorder, it would have no associated work order info. This lets you do full or partial receipts, manage returns through here, and each record, I'm just going to pull up a record here. Each record can have unlimited locations. So we keep this filter at 3 different areas, and each one has its own specific info. When you do inventory counts, we have an inventory count app. If you're not aware of it, it allows you to do inventory counts real time. So that means any of you have done counts before, no, you typically are doing it off hours on an off day. You can do it real time, no shutting down inventory anymore. You can do it on the fly. Also, replenishment, set when you're going to reorder and how much to reorder automatically. Your vendors, they too can track, vendor spend contracts, price contracts, warranty information. All of that's contained in here, and you can track unlimited vendors. If you use the barcoding lets you apply cross-references. So that way I can scan what's already on an item. Even if we get this filter from different vendors, manufacturers, I don't have to print labels. I can just scan what's already on it and it knows what I'm pulling from inventory. You can transfer items between locations, and you can also direct issue things. So this direct issue is your ability to issue parts and materials to an asset, department, account, or project code without needing a work order. So again, another no work order needed function to allow for some flexibility when charging things out. It still shows up on all your billing. It decrements it from your quantity on hand. And if it's to an asset, it still shows up under the total cost of ownership. You just didn't need a work order to do it. So that's our inventory. The last few pieces here are going to be asset performance, capital planning, and our reporting functions. So asset performance is an area where you group assets together, how you'd like to see them. Doesn't matter how you group them, that's completely up to you. But these groups are where any information captured on condition is sent to show current performance. Now, based on the standard expected life that you've input in the system, it's going to tell you expected remaining life, replacement. It's also going to show you a performance chart. And this chart plots all the condition scores over time. The decay curve you define by asset type, and the condition threshold gets defined by asset type. And so what happens here is if a score is input, so through those test results, with or without a work order, if I get a score that is below the threshold, this will send notifications to whoever needs to be notified when this drops below required condition. So one of the things to note here is those scores that I had up, those can also be calculated. So if you want to weight certain factors, have multiple different types of entries, define a score, you can absolutely do that instead of just choosing from a scale and having someone arbitrarily define the condition. But when and if you get notified, it'll turn the asset red, and in the maintenance chart, you'll be able to see historical and projected cost and condition, and you as an organization can predefine recommended tasks. So when it reaches a certain range or specific condition, the system, based on what you predefine, can say, hey, we'd like you to do one of the following. And it even lets you set estimates on here. So I purposely have this as kind of obvious, but hey, we can either do an additional assessment or we can spend over $8,000. Well, maybe we'll do the additional assessment, right? So from here, I can generate that work, and when it's finished, it can then improve the score by whatever you predefine. So it's a nice workflow of getting in place the test results to capture condition, and then simply waiting for the system to proactively tell you, hey, you need to take additional action here. This is no longer acceptable condition. Now, it isn't always that simple. Sometimes, if something fails, you've got to get approval on what to do. You might have to get funding for it. Who knows all the variables, right? So I can choose any of these assets and I can group them onto a new or an existing capital project. And where do those projects live? They live under our capital planning portal. And this portal lets you go as far out as 30 years with your budget. And they're created by loading up your funding sources for each year. And then within there, you have your projects. And the projects are either active or inactive projects. Approval process can be set before this becomes active. The schedule can be defined and also viewed by phase and the budget here instead of the calendar view, or the chart view here. The work projects, these break down the scheduled phases into smaller projects than the capital project. And that way, within certain phases, within certain milestones, I can see what we're spending real time. I can associate my funding sources. This can be fed from asset performance, or I can just add assets by searching and adding them to the project. There's GIS involved, so if you want to see it spatially, you can. Files, notes, work orders that are added. When something is activated and there's work orders here, all the labor, parts and materials, equipment usage, and any contractor, vendor, commercial work that you do is going to roll up against the overall spend on this project, against the funding sources and the overall budget. It also lets you set a score and rank survey. You choose what rating criteria you want, and then within here I can see my rating on the radar chart, and I can see everybody else's average rating. And what this does, it just allows you to get some feedback on a project about anything you care about. And I just have 4 simple things here. You can do a whole bunch of things if you like. But hey, everybody's concerned about materials. We could hold a meeting, discuss it, and figure out what we can do in the project here to make modifications to mitigate that. So capital planning really ties in everything in the system from beginning to end of the life cycle of an asset to say, if we're using asset performance, I'm going to get alerted when we have to do something, and I can then move it into a project under a plan. And from there, we can decide, are we replacing it? Are we repairing it? And if so, what is that going to cost? And when do we want to do it? And then when we do it, apply it, and then be able to track the completion of it. So that's capital planning. Last but not least, and a lot of you that are current customers already know this, but you have Crystal Reports as your default reporting tool. If you need to plug in other reporting tools, you can through ODBC. If you're not already, we have. I know Power BI is very popular. We have a new guide out right now that shows you how to plug in Power BI. Again, it doesn't cost you anything. You just have to have the technical resources on your end to be able to do that. But these reports can be set as my favorites. I can also use a quick access reports up top. Look at my history, my favorites, open up any of these sections, or simply just do a search for a report. Any report that you have, if it's not already for existing customers, got your logo, we can get your logo up there. It can be exported in a variety of formats. Some with charts and whatnot may not export to Excel in a nice format, so just be aware of that. I can run it with different filters, PDF, print, and I can also schedule reports to be sent one time or on a recurring daily, weekly, or monthly basis. You've also got an ad hoc report tool. This simply forgoes needing any of the Crystal license tool to build a report. You can stay in the system, still build reports, share them, and organize them. And then last but not least, your dashboard KPIs, or key performance indicators. You can create as many dashboards as you like. In them, you can have as many KPIs as you like, and they can be hyperlinked. So, hey, take me to these 27 work orders. I can pull that up, and I can see whatever screen I want to jump to. I can also set alert thresholds, whether in a readout or in any of the gauges. So yellow and red can trigger notifications. Really, all this is doing is making your data proactive. It's taking all of your existing report data and allowing you to be alerted without having to take any action here. Just set it up in advance. These can be built with SQL statements. You can also turn ad hoc reports and convert them into KPIs. That's the way I like to do it. I find that to be the simplest way to do it. But these also are permission based. And you can set a refresh rate as often as 30 seconds. So having come from the implementation side, something that I saw a lot before moving over to sales is people putting this up on flat screen TVs in a shop or in an office location. And that way, without having to log in, you can see near real-time updates of everything going on or everything that's important to you. So we wrapped up here. We have a little